Hi there, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. My name is Kate Steele. I'm the brand marketing specialist for Atlantic Credit Unions. And for those of you who don't know, Atlantic Credit Unions are a cooperative financial institution. We have over 140 locations in Atlantic Canada to service all your financial needs. And I'm really excited that all of you are here to join us today. I think we can all agree that buying your first home under normal circumstances can be pretty overwhelming, yet a very exciting experience. But under today's circumstances, with very low market rates, competitive markets, and obviously the impact that we're all experiencing due to the pandemic and COVID-19, if you're in the market for buying your first home, there's probably even elevated anxieties and certainly some uncertainties that come with buying your first home. So we're super excited at Atlantic Credit Unions today to bring together this panel of experts to answer all of your questions that you might have with regards to buying your first home, going through the process, how to make it legal, talking a little bit about the market conditions, working with a realtor, all of these great questions. And thank you again for those of you who submitted questions in advance today. We really appreciate it. Joining me today, you'll see Jennifer Engelhardt. She is our Atlantic Credit Union mortgage expert. She's with Omista Credit Union in Moncton. Thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you.
We have Donna Malone. She is the president-elect of the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors. She's also with Exit Realty in Bridgewater, and we're really excited for Donna to walk us through working with a realtor and what that's all about. And we have Tad. Awesome, thank you, Donna. And Tad Maguagrande. Tad is the senior analyst in the economics department with the CMHC, or Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation, as some of you may know, and Suzanne Robichaud. Suzanne is the owner and operator of Scotia Law Inc. Here in Nova Scotia. She's worked a lot with first-time home buyers, my husband included, and has a really specialized practice in real estate. So we're really excited to have the four of you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. And so obviously we're here today because we have a vested interest in real estate and what those anxieties may be, and clearing up some of those questions that first-time home buyers might have as they evoke on this new journey to purchasing their new home. And I mentioned, you know, the rates are historically low right now. I mean, I think we can all agree. We've seen reports of low rates across coast to coast. Jennifer, I'm wondering, you know, before you even secure a rate, what are some first steps? You know, I've decided that I want to purchase my first home. What do I do?
Great question, Kate. So buying that first home is one of the biggest financial decisions most people will make. Home ownership comes with a lot of rewards, but also a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
So the key is to be prepared and knowing what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend the first step should be preparing a monthly budget.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what your income can support when it comes to your mortgage payments and ongoing maintenance cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step would be going into the credit union, sitting down with your credit union expert,
Mm-hmm.
and getting that mortgage pre-approval.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go over your financial situation,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll look at things such as your credit history and your debt ratio.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so yes, of course, we would want to know what we can afford before we get really into the weeds of things, especially in competitive markets. What is a debt ratio? Can you help me understand a little bit more about that and what that means for my purchasing ability?
Perfect. Yeah. So the debt ratio is a ratio between your debt and your monthly income.
Mm-hmm.
So mortgage professionals use two ratios to determine if the applicant can afford the house purchase.
Okay.
So the first one is called the gross debt ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the percentage of your monthly income that covers your housing cost. The housing cost includes your mortgage payment, property taxes, and heating cost.
Mm-hmm.
The second calculation is the total debt ratio. This one covers your monthly housing cost and also all your other debt.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the lower the debt ratio, the better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this would help you then at the credit union or the financial institution determine what your affordability is. So
Exactly.
then I can take that number and say engage Donna, my realtor, and say, Donna, this is what I can afford. And so Donna, once I've gone to see Jennifer, and I've secured my pre-approval, what are some of the next steps or some tips that you can give first-time home buyers once they have that, that budget that they're working with?
Well, it's absolutely critical, especially in this market, for them to go see the mortgage experts first,
Mm-hmm.
find out what they can afford, so that they know what price range they'll be able to shop in,
Mm-hmm.
and and that when they go to make an offer, they
Mm-hmm.
already know what their financing plan is, which puts them in a position to make a stronger offer and
Yes.
maybe be the one who gets the accepted offer on that home. Looking through, just about it, well, everything that's on the organized real estate market is online.
Yeah.
And so it's a good idea for buyers to start browsing on the internet and look at neighborhoods they like and the type of house they want, get an idea of what's available in their price range. But using the expertise of a realtor is critical for a buyer. Buyers are, especially first-time buyers, don't have the background to really be able to navigate the purchase process unless they have somebody who is a trained professional working with them. And for the buyer, it normally doesn't cost the buyer for their real estate professional and for the expertise that's brought to the table by the realtor.
That's a great point. That something certainly that I didn't know at first, that engaging a realtor as a buyer, there's often no fees. It's often covered by the seller in that transaction, which is really helpful. I mean, Jennifer said it best when she said, this is one of the largest purchases one makes in their life, often tied to high emotions. I can attest to that as well. What are some of the ways, you referenced obviously being that trusted guide to that buyer, but what are other ways that realtors can help not just first-time home buyers, but buyers in general and sellers for that matter in the real estate transaction process?
Well, the process is complicated. There are a lot of steps. There are a lot of moving pieces, and it really helps to have somebody who knows that process like the back of their hand, so that they can advise you and guide you through the decision-making process. How much you're going to offer is one of the aspects, but it's also the other conditions. Are you going to want to engage the services of a building inspector? What conditions to the sale will you put in your offer? Are you going to be asking the sellers to leave behind some chattels? Can you negotiate for the appliances in the home? So and then if you're buying a property in a rural area, there's also the conditions regarding the quality of water in the well and the flow rate and the water pressure and the quality of the water. And also the septic system, is that in good shape? Do you need to investigate that? So there are a lot of parts to this process, and having a trusted guide who's been through the ropes a few times and understands the process and what you need to do, I think that is a huge value to buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. I can also attest to that. Very valuable part of the process. Suzanne, you are in the business of making this whole big transaction legal and often deal with first-time home buyers. I'm wondering if you can chat a little bit more about, once I've engaged my realtor, I know my pre-approval from my credit union, when do I need to engage a lawyer? Is it the offer process? Like as soon as I want to offer on a property, do I need you to look at the contract, or is it just when it gets accepted?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I do get a lot of phone calls from people that don't know that process and want to make sure that they're informed up front. With me, the process really only starts once you get an accepted offer, because until that contract has been accepted
Mm-hmm.
between the buyers and sellers, there's no contractual relationship as of
Mm-hmm.
yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's really important for buyers to know, and sellers as well, is that the conditions are in the agreement of purchase and sale to protect both parties. And that's what you're going to call your due diligence conditions dates. So there will always be, or normally always be, condition date for inspection, water,
Mm-hmm.
financing,
Mm-hmm.
insurance, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be a legal review
Mm-hmm.
clause, which that gives each lawyer the ability to be able to check and make sure that the contract is rating okay, that there's
Mm-hmm.
no, clauses that are a little bit out of the norm that,
Mm-hmm.
we more clarification on, to check title to the property, to make sure that, the sellers can actually sell the property and the buyers can buy, judgments, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are starting the process at the offer and acceptance stage.
Okay.
And taking it from there.
Okay. Yeah, and that due diligence process is very important in the process, and
Yes,
understanding, more about the property, but if the deal will actually go through, because of those conditions. So,
yeah.
Jennifer, I'm wondering if you can speak to, in that due diligence process, how does the financing behind the scenes go? How do you go from the pre-approval to actually knowing for sure that you have secured this rate or secured the mortgage? And does that have to happen in that due diligence process?
So once the offer is signed, you'll submit the purchase and sale agreement to your lender. We will then submit that application to CMHC.
Yep.
Once the application has been approved, we'll actually write out the approval letter, and that will go to the applicant's realtor. And that's a legal deal.
Okay.
And then prior to the closing, you'll come into the branch, meet with your credit union expert, and then sign off on the mortgage documents.
Awesome. And then Suzanne, I assume from there on closing day, there is a significant amount between you and Donna, the realtor, in terms of getting that finalized, correct?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of back and forth, really, and communication, collaboration between the realtors and the lenders. So after they would sign in branch, then Jennifer and her team, or the people at the branch at their head office, would send me what's called mortgage instructions.
Okay.
So that would enable me to prepare what the lender has asked me to prepare legally for those documents. So the mortgage itself, any commitments or anything that needs to be signed, which need to be then registered on the property. Protect the lender's interest. And then that's when we get the clients in to sign based on when we receive those closer to closing. And then with the realtors, what we're doing is making, a lot of the realtors are following up. Okay, do you need anything else? If there's a lot of work that's being done on properties, like receipts, things that need to be repaired, replaced. And the realtors are normally the ones that are going back and forth between the seller's realtor and the buyer's realtor, and then sending those documents to me before closing, so that we can ensure that all the conditions in the purchase and sale agreement are met.
Yeah, I know, and Donna, you can probably speak more to this, but on closing day, our realtor, we walk through this place, where I'm sitting, with a fine-tooth comb, every light on, like the washers, the dryers, everything, just to make sure that everything was in working order. Can you walk through how, from your perspective, Donna, the closing process on closing day? How do I get the keys?
Okay, well, the buyer's responsibility on closing day is to visit the property and have a good look at the property. And the purpose for that is to make sure that the property is in the same condition on the day that you close as it was on the day that you decided to make your offer.
Yes.
So if there has been any damage or if there's something that is unexpected, then you're going to need to talk to your lawyer, and it could possibly delay closing.
Yes.
And so you want to ensure that if you have contracted for any chattels, that the chattels are in the property and in good working order, like you said. If you have appliances, you want to check to make sure that they are working on the day of closing. And if you've asked for vacant possession, other than those chattels that you have contracted for,
Mhm.
then you just want to confirm that everything has been removed. You don't want to find out that there's 10 garbage bags in the backyard that are still there.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have to deal
No.
with them.
No.
So those are the things you're looking for when you do the walkthrough on closing day. And then
Okay.
everything is good. You call your lawyer and you say, we're good to close. Once the lawyer has finished the end process of trading the money and the deed,
Mhm.
I get a call and I'm told we are closed. You can release the keys. So
Mhm.
then the buyer has the keys and the house is now theirs.
Okay. I mean, that's a easy way of putting it through an often emotional process for sure, but very exciting when you finally do get those keys.
Yeah.
I know we're brought here today because of obviously learning more about a first-time home buyer, what you can expect, et cetera. But there's obviously right now we're experiencing the impact of COVID-19, and because of that, these historically low mortgage rates or low rates. Tad, I know you're joining us today, and a senior analyst with CMHC, and I'm hoping that you can talk to us a little bit about what that means for Atlantic Canadians. These low rates, we're hearing about real estate crashes, primarily from our neighbors from the States, but is that something that might be on the horizon for Atlantic Canada? I'm hoping you can unpack that a little bit and help us understand, because that might be something people are feeling anxiety about purchasing right now.
Okay, so let me break my response into two parts. The first one being addressing the issue of interest rates, where they are now and where they're going.
Yeah.
I think as recently as last week, the Bank of Canada, which is the authority on interest rates and the ones who drive whether or not they're going up, they're staying the same, or they're going down, they've come out clearly to say that low interest rates are here to support the recovery of the Canadian economy. So as long as we're still grappling with COVID-19, as long as recovery is still in its infancy, then I think we can simply take the lead that they have clearly presented and say, well, interest rates are going to be low for the foreseeable future. As to whether or not there are then going to be foreclosures, bankruptcies, I wouldn't be able to speak to what's happened in the States, obviously,
Yes,
without
of
looking
course.
at any numbers there. And on our end, I think one of the things that I think it's important for people to remember, in fact, two important things to remember are, number one, we have an ever-changing landscape. And
Yes.
at the moment, there are people who have exercised the deferral program or the options of the deferral program. And during the period that people have been using this deferral program, we've had improvements in employment. So people have come back to work, work hours have improved. So are people then going to be able to repay their mortgages once this resumes? Have people approached their lenders to find alternative options? These are still questions that are still in the air. So I don't think at this stage we can be drawing any conclusions on the foreclosures. I think the most important thing would be to keep monitoring the situation as we at CMHC are doing.
Yeah, no, that's great intel for sure. It's interesting that, the Bank of Canada has come out and said, for the foreseeable future, there is a little bit of comfort, I guess, one can take in investing in that now then. So would you recommend buyers that are in the market right now, would you recommend holding off, or would you recommend proceeding forward and taking advantage of these lower rates and locking in?
So again, just on this one, I think given the discussion that we've just had, and as I'm sure as some of the first-time home buyers are hearing for themselves, that buying a home is quite a significant financial commitment, and it's quite an involved process. So I don't think one can draw any individual decision conclusions from what we're discussing here in terms of the rates.
Yeah.
What I think would be the key message on the rate issue is that usually there's a lot of speculation and discussion around where the Bank of Canada will go with rates.
Yes.
And here, because they are trying to ensure that they are supporting the recovery of the economy, they've come out and said low interest rates are here to support this recovery. So I think that's really the take-home message, that low interest are here to support recovery.
Okay, no, that's good to know. That the recovery is obviously really important, and good to hear that you're seeing more people going back to normalcy in terms of a working life and what have you. Jennifer, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about down payments. And Tad speaking to the economy, and we're seeing a little bit of more positivity than maybe what we were seeing in March or April. I'm wondering if you can help us understand a little bit more about down payments. Obviously require you to save, and so what are some tips and tricks you can give folks that are maybe considering buying a home now, but maybe they're a little bit they need to save just a little bit more to get that down payment?
Oh, that's a good question. I would recommend sitting down and creating a goal. So knowing what kind of property you envision yourself living in, and what kind of purchase price. So we know that the minimum down payment is 5%.
Yes.
So maybe while you're creating your monthly budget, determine how much of your disposable income can be put towards the savings. So every 2 weeks, do an auto transfer into a savings account.
Okay.
I've had some clients ask me to put a hold on their savings account, so they don't have access to those funds until they're ready to purchase the home.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. Awesome. Suzanne, I'm wondering, there's obviously more fees involved. Again, speaking from my own perspective, that I was surprised about, besides just the down payment. Can you walk me through some of those closing costs or additional fees that come up in the house buying process?
Yeah, for sure. And that's
and
really
maybe
something
speak to
that,
some of those first-time home buy, like often those questions that you get
yeah, for
asked.
sure. For sure. So in Nova Scotia, anyway, here there's the biggest closing cost would be the deed transfer tax. So that's anywhere between 0.5 to 1.5% of the purchase price, depending on the county that you're in or the municipality that you're in. Most counties now are 1.5%, which is the biggest, and it is always based on your purchase price amount. A lot of the other things that creep up are property taxes. So depending on when you're going to buy and where the tax year is, or either repaying back the seller for some of the property tax year that they're not going to own the property and that the buyers will own the property, or we're paying the next property tax bill that's coming up. So a lot of the times, depending on the price of the house and what it's assessed at, those are included in those closing costs. There's also the municipal recording fees, so the recording of the deed, recording of the mortgage. There's also what's called title insurance. It's essentially a protection because there's no requirement here in Nova Scotia to have a survey or a location certificate to purchase. So that's an added expense. There's legal fees. And then depending on how the property is heated, there could also be oil adjustments, propane adjustment, any leased equipment. Let's say there's a heat pump leased or a propane tank leased. Those are all things that we'll adjust for at closing. So, you could be paying as a buyer, if there's oil at the property, you could be paying for a whole tank of oil added to your closing costs. Same thing with propane. So when someone calls and says, what are my closing costs? Those are the questions that I'm asking. How's the property heated? Where are you located? What's the assessed value of the property? Things like that to kind of give them the best idea of what it's going to cost.
Yeah, I mean, that deed transfer fee in here in Nova Scotia, at least, I can't speak for other provinces, that's quite a big expense. If you're thinking about 1.5% of your purchase price, that's a lot of cash to have on hand, in addition to your down payment. And, as Jennifer mentioned, there's other things, maintenance and regular upkeep that you need to keep in mind as you're moving forward. You've got to pay for this place once you get into it, right? So it's not just about having the cash on hand today, it's about the longevity. That's interesting, definitely, in terms of those additional costs. People need to be prepared. Donna, I'm wondering, you brought up chattels, and would that be a situation too? Like, is that a situation where, a home buyer first-time home buyer goes into a home, they don't have any furniture, let's say, and they walk into a house and they love everything about it. Is that something that you see happening as well, where you know, buyers make offers on people's furniture in addition to the actual physical property?
Yes, and you know, the most common chattels to change hands in a property transaction are the appliances.
Okay.
And just because the cut sheet on, you know, the internet information may say washer, dryer, fridge, stove included,
Mm-hmm.
if your agent doesn't put them in the contract that they're included, they're not included.
Right.
So everything that's included in that sale has to be referenced on the contract that you sign with the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the seller wants to get rid of some of the chattels. And so, you know, they may instruct their agent, or it may even be in the description of the property, furniture negotiable. Other times, a first-time buyer coming in doesn't have a full house of furniture because they've been living in a small apartment. And so sometimes they will ask the seller to include some of the chattels with the purchase. And so it's really a negotiating point between the two parties as to what they want and what they're willing to, you know, to give up in value for that.
Okay. So that kind of brings me to thinking, and Jennifer, maybe you can unpack this a little. Mortgage plus improvements. I'm a first-time home buyer and I walk into a house that maybe I love the location, but the house itself needs a little love. How does that work? What is mortgage plus improvements? And can you help me understand a little bit more about how that works on the financing side of things?
Yes. So it's a program that's offered through our insurers. So when you make an offer on the home, it's a good idea to also have an idea if there's any items that needs to be updated. It could be updating the windows, doors. It could be putting up a fence in the backyard for your dog. So any of those things, make note. And then when you submit your request with your lender, they'll ask to get a copy of a written quote that details the work and also the costs involved.
From a licensed contractor?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And then once you move into the home, you can begin the project right away.
Okay.
It's important to know that the cost of the renovations can only be rolled into the mortgage upon completion of the project.
Okay.
So you'll have to be able to fund the project either through your personal savings, or if you could request a personal loan or a line of credit through your credit union.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, that's interesting for sure. I'm sure people, that's good to know that is an option, because often it can be daunting walking into a house that might need some work. I walked into a green kitchen and I was like, this is not for me. So good to know that, you know, there are options. It's not in terms of making the house your home. I'm wondering, Donna, if you can help us unpack or talk a little bit more about, we're hearing from coast to coast, really hot markets, you know, properties selling for over asking price, selling, you know, not even hitting the market and just selling. You know, I experienced this myself. I'm wondering if that's what you're seeing in Atlantic Canada, and how, if I'm a first-time home buyer or even, you know, a buyer in general, how can I prepare myself for that process? Because that can be, you know, kind of emotional and a roller coaster in itself.
Well, I can only speak for Nova Scotia, but I can tell you that throughout the province, that is happening. We're in a very active market.
Yes.
Properties, if they are in good locations and they're well priced and they're in good condition, you're going to get multiple offers. And you might get 2 or 3, but you might get 10 or 20. You know, it depends where you are, how much of a demand there is for that location and that particular type of product. I think in a market like this, you have 2 best friends. One is your realtor to guide you through and have a cool head through the process.
Yep.
And the other one is your mortgage broker.
Yep.
Is your mortgage broker is going to be the one who says, this is how much money you can spend.
Yep.
And, you know, you have to take that very seriously, because if you overpay for a house and the market takes a downward adjustment, or a second wave of COVID comes along and your employer shuts down and now you're out of work, you can't pay your mortgage, you know, you could risk losing this house that you were so excited to buy. So I think it's keeping a calm head, being patient, and, you know, some of the realtors can get pretty creative about how they can find you a house. Just because what you want is not on the market doesn't mean that your realtor can't find you what you want.
Yeah, you know, they really have their ear to the ground on what's going on in the marketplace, or maybe what might be coming up, which is what happened in my case. So,
and you know, the bank or the lending institution in most cases is going to send out an appraiser.
Yes,
you're going to have a second set of eyes on the value of that home. And that information is transferred to the bank, and they make the assessment. Are you offering a reasonable amount on the value of this home, or have you offered too much? So, you know, you have that bit of expertise in there to kind of help you from getting out of control on what you're offering.
Yeah, and at least another level of comfort in that the decision, you know, which is you know, like Jennifer said, to keep drawing back to it, the biggest one that you'll make in your life. So good to know that, you know, there's a little bit of security in that decision. Jennifer, I'm wondering, and maybe it's a combination, and Tad, feel free to layer in, or Suzanne or Donna, there are some incentives we know for first-time home buyers, both federally and provincially. Can you speak to any of those and how that works from the buyer's perspective? Is it an application?
Yep, there are many incentives out there. I would recommend visiting honestmoney.ca to get some more information. There has been one that was rolled out earlier this year by the federal government for first-time home buyers. It allows you to get into your first home, and it reduces your monthly mortgage payment. There's a lot of information to know before you sign up for that. So I recommend sitting down with your credit union expert and looking at all options.
That's great. Yeah, I was, when I looked into that a little bit more, it was interesting, the back end of things. So being informed, I think you're right, is great counsel there. Suzanne, is there any other incentives or programs that you know of, maybe specifically speaking to Nova Scotia, and things that you've seen cross your desk that people are taking advantage of in today's home buying market?
Yeah, there are two programs currently that I've seen, and I believe are still available. I'll let Tad speak to the CMHC one, but I know there's a CMHC first-time home buyers incentive that's offered through CMHC, and then there's here in Nova Scotia, there's the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program. Now I know that last year that ran out. They had a lot of applicants, and this year there was more money in April, and I'm still getting people that are applicants, and that it's that we're closing on homes that provide that. For the details, I'd probably direct participants here to just check either with the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program online, or even the CMHC First Time Home Buyers Incentive. There's lots of information online about those.
And Tad, would you agree with that? More information available online?
I have to say, that there's more information available online on first-time home buyers incentive, and that there will also be some tools in a toolkit for first-time home buyers to assess what they could pay. So on the CMHC website, there's some resources there as well for people who are looking to buy a home.
In terms of affordability and whatnot. Okay. Yeah, that's good tools to use as well when you're thinking about buying a home, for sure. I know that there is a tool on CMHC in particular for that first-time home buyers incentive, and how that would work based on your income. So that's an interesting thing to check out. I'm wondering if any of you, perhaps maybe Donna, you could speak to this, Jennifer. We did have a specific question on sort of tax incentives, and if there is any available. Can you help clarify if there is any available, maybe provide some information on where people can find that information? And Donna, maybe you provide counsel to clients on where they can take advantage of that or read more.
I would like to give a shout out to the CMHC website.
Yes.
Anybody who's interested in real estate in Canada should be spending some time on that website. It is an excellent resource. It's got so much information on so many aspects of the market, and you know, just so many different aspects of the market. But if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're a home buyer, you know, there are specific areas of that website that would be of particular importance to you. And I'd like to say that the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors lobbies the provincial and the municipal governments on behalf of buyers to try and make home buying more affordable. We're trying to work with the municipalities to see if we can make any type of adjustments to the transfer tax that might make it more affordable for first-time home buyers. Yeah. We were quite instrumental with the provincial government in getting that down payment assistance program brought in. The Canadian Realtors, the Canadian Association of Realtors, lobbies the federal government to try and bring in federal programs. So there's lots of support out there, organizations trying to really support the ability of Canadians to be homeowners and to help them with successful home ownership. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
no, I think that's a great, you make a great point in that there's so many organizations out there that are here championing people and trying to support them in their home buying journey. I mean, you four are a great example of that. You know, we've got, you know, the credit union perspective, we have a realtor, we have, you know, CMHC, and we have the, you know, the lawyer and the legal perspective. And so holistically, I think that you guys, I said it in the beginning, but this is a great panel to provide advice on this particular topic to not just first-time home buyers, but you know, buyers and sellers in the real estate market in general. And so I'm wondering, we're going to close things up here, but is there any other advice that you would provide first-time home buyers, or again, buyers in general, during this process that we didn't necessarily touch on today?
Yes, I would like to just alert home buyers to something they may not know. You can, if you see a home that is being advertised as for sale by owner,
yes,
that doesn't mean that you can't have your own independent real estate advice. So I would recommend to any buyer, even if you think you're going to make a decision to make a private sale, don't do it without the help of a realtor. In most cases, a realtor can negotiate with the seller to have the seller pay the fee. So you still, in most cases, will not have to pay the fee, and you will have all of the protections and all of the expertise of that professional to guide you through that process and help you see any pitfalls before you may step into them. And I think that's an important thing. A lot of people probably would not know that.
No, that's great advice. I think I said this earlier, but I don't think a lot of people know that as a buyer, you don't often have to pay those fees. So good to know, obviously, that, you know, your realtor really does have your back and can negotiate those things for you, even in a private sale. So that's very great counsel. Tad, do you have any final thoughts or things to share from, you know, the market perspective or what you're seeing in the economic landscape in Atlantic Canada to encourage first-time home buyers?
I think it's worthwhile, I think, pointing out there was something brought up on the Nova Scotia side, but to say that some of the themes we're seeing here in Nova Scotia are shared across the board in PEI, in Newfoundland, Labrador, and in New Brunswick. So some of those things with relatively strong sales and a decline in the listings These are common themes. So some of the things that people are hearing here, even though they've been referenced to Nova Scotia, do apply in some of the other provinces as well.
Yes, thank you very much for layering that in. That is really important. We have mentioned Nova Scotia quite a bit, but we are seeing these trends across the 4 Atlantic Canadian provinces, not just here in Nova Scotia. So thank you for that. Jennifer, I know we've touched on the rates. We could talk about rates all day. What are those rates that credit unions are offering today, and how can I get in touch with you or in touch with a mortgage expert to learn more?
Yeah, well, when it comes to rates, there are many different options to consider. So I would recommend reaching out to your credit union expert, setting up a meeting, and having that conversation with them. I work at the Umista Credit Union here in Moncton, New Brunswick. And along with the 2 branches we have here in Moncton, we also have a branch in Fredericton and a branch in Oromocto. There are credit union branches all over the Atlantic provinces, and our experts are always excited to meet with first-time home buyers. And you can also visit honestmoney.ca. There's a lot of information online, and you can connect with a local credit union in your area.
That's awesome. That's great. I want to thank the 4 of you for joining us today again on this amazing panel. Everyone, Jennifer Engelhardt from Atlantic Credit Unions, our mortgage experts, Donna Malone, President-elect of the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors, and also with Exit Realty in Bridgewater, Tad Magwegwede, Senior Analyst Economics with CMHC, and Suzanne Robichaud, owner and operator of Scotia Law Inc., with specialization in real estate and working with first-time home buyers. If you'd like to, for anyone that is joining us today, perhaps we didn't touch on a question, or you'd like to reach out and engage with one of these amazing panelists directly, I encourage you to reach out to us on social media at Atlantic Credit Unions. We will either redirect you or get you the answer that you are looking for. Again, we really appreciate your time today and you joining us. We hope that today served as a good primer to alleviate some of those anxieties you may be experiencing. And we hope that we answered some of those questions that you might have had during these really unprecedented times. You'll find a copy of this webinar as well as more refreshingly honest financial advice on our blog, honestmoney.ca. Thank you all again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.